Hello, this is Dan McCarty. I'm here once again on behalf of Marketing Man Site's YouTube channel. Today we have a professional sales lecture. We're going to talk about managing the salesman's time, your time, and your territory. Let's start with a brief discussion of the value of your time. If you look at 8 hours a day, 240 days a year, just kind of the work days, 1,920 hours a year. If you make $40,000 a year, your time is worth $21 an hour. At $50,000, it's worth $26 an hour, and so on. So, I mean, there's a definite dollar value to your time that's not insignificant. But beyond that, you have to make every hour count to be successful. Some salespeople spend as much as 70% of their time in non-selling activities. So if only 30% of your time is selling, think about how valuable those hours are. Allocating your resources often makes the difference between a good performing salesman and a poor performing salesman. Okay, the self-management process, I don't know about you, but some people have a problem with self-management. Some people prefer boss management. A salesman has to be a self-manager. And that process is pretty straightforward. You set sales goals, you design a strategy and allocate your resources, you implement that strategy, and then you evaluate how it's working. Now, the starting point of you managing yourself is setting a goal. First of all, a lifestyle goal. What do you want to achieve? What's the work-life balance you want? What's your career objectives? Some people I've seen take a picture of a dream house they've always wanted or a retirement home on a lake, and they put that up on their office wall and say, that's what I'm working for, that's my goal. So once you've kind of looked at the big picture, you then say, okay, now we're going to talk about this sales job and what it can contribute towards that goal. What are my sales goals? There you want some type of performance goals, which is number of new accounts, total sales dollar revenues, or total sales units. So the sales goals is how much business do I want to generate. Now, in order to get that, you put in place sub-goals that will total the performance goal, and those are activity goals and conversion goals. Let me explain to you how it works. Let's say your monthly earnings goal is you want to make $6,000, and you know that your commission is $750 per sale. So that means you got to make 8 sales to hit your performance goal. So your performance goal is $6,000 in commission or 8 sales. Now let's talk about how to get there. Say you know that probably 10% of people actually close. 10% actually convert and order something. Okay, so 1 out of 10. That means if I want 8 closings, I'm going to have to call on 80 people. And then at a 10% rate, I should have my 8 closings. So 80 people I have to get in the way of prospects. Well, I also know that not everybody I call on turns out to be a good prospect. I actually have to make 3 calls to find a good prospect. So to get those 80 calls, I'm going to have to make, to get those 80 prospects, I'm going to have to make 3 calls times 80. I'm going to have to make 240 calls in order to get those 80 prospects, of which I will convert 10% to get my 8 sales. And taking in 20 working days a month, that means I have to call on 12 people a day to get my 240 calls. Now, the math in and of itself is not so critical that you know how to maybe do that problem. What's important is that you understand that in order to get at your performance goal, you have to break it out into the individual steps. It's like a funnel. You have to start with a huge number of people, which you know 1 out of 3 will become prospects, and then you funnel it down and you know 1 out of 10 of those will actually close, and so that gets you your 8 sales calls. So you have to back up and figure out how many people do I need based on historical math in order to get to my goal. Another way to make sure you're getting the most business out of your time is to rank your customers. I mean, calling on Walmart or calling on Walmart or Joe's convenience store you certainly have a lot more potential calling on a Walmart. So you have to actually quantify the potential of each of your accounts, and a simple way to do that is called the ABC method, and that is based on the 80-20 rule. So what you do is you classify your accounts into two ways. A accounts, which are the top 20% of your accounts, and then B accounts, which is the other 80%. C accounts are new accounts or accounts not normally doing business with you right now. So they're the longer shots. So spend most of your time with your top 20% of the accounts. Definitely factor in some time to work with that other 80% to move them into the top 20% and work the C accounts as you have time. Another way to classify your accounts other than the ABC method is called the sales call allocation grid. Now that takes a look and says, okay, how big is the opportunity to the account? That's on the left-hand side. Is it a small opportunity or a big opportunity for them? But the second part is, how much strength do we have with this account? Do we really have good relationships? There's a high probability we can sell them, or are they really in bed with someone else and we really probably is a long shot? So obviously the best kind of customers where the account opportunity is big and we have a strong position of getting in there, that is the top left-hand box, high, strong. That's your number one accounts you want to go after. The worst accounts, of course, where there's not much of an opportunity and we have a weak position, that's the lower right, segment 4. The other two are something in the middle, and you adjust your strategy based on that particular type of account. And you can see the specific strategies that each box calls for. The concept I want to get through to you is simply classifying your account based on the size of the opportunity and the probability of your success. Other ways to make your time as efficient as possible: routing is a whole art and science in and of itself. And you can see this here is, we've got the kind of the target routing plan, you've got the straight line routing plan, the circular approach, the clover leaf approach. There's all kinds of ways that you can, the leapfrog approach, there's all kinds of ways that you can manage your routes. And you can even divide routes into sub-territories so that while you're visiting, you can make sure that your highest concentration of big customers are in your best zones, and you spend the most time within the right zones as you start to attack these territories. Probably the largest part of becoming more efficient is having a disciplined method for evaluating your performance. I mean, salespeople tend to have a love-hate relationship with paperwork. I mean, it interferes with the selling, but that's how you learn, and that's how you begin to really classify these accounts. So you do a post-call analysis, what happened, and follow-up. You do your activity analysis, what you want to achieve with them, when you're going to do it. You do your performance analysis. You take all those assumptions you had about 80 customers and 3 calls per customer, 10%, and you see, okay, how did I do relative to that? Did I validate that, or was I off? And then productivity, you identify which strategies work and which strategies don't. So just going out there and pounding the pavement isn't enough. You need to have a quantifiable bottom-up approach that you think will mathematically generate your target sales. And you need to manage that territory to get to those people in the most efficient way possible, so that you're spending every sales hour possible in front of the customer. This is Dan McCarty saying thanks, and we'll talk to you next time.